Rob here. Today I'm going to be talking a little bit more about the game March of the Ants. It's a 4X game, and I did a review with my friend Jess. Actually, Jess did the review, and I'll put a link up here. It was a drunk review. And one of the viewers had some questions about it, and I'm going to try to answer them here today. Is there king making? I don't think so. I mean, as the game goes on, it becomes clear that maybe someone might be in the lead, but there's really not a lot of an ability short of attacking them or convincing other people to attack them. And in my experience, the game has been close pretty much all the time. And plus, there's ways that you could try to get some end game objectives that might actually help someone come from behind who may not be obviously close to winning. So you really don't know. There's enough hidden information with people's hands to know whether or not they have a better chance than you think they do. Does the gameplay contain any excitement? Yes, it contains a lot of excitement. The battle system is really, really cool because you're using cards and you're simultaneously revealing them, and each of the cards has power, and you're going to add that power to the number of ants you have on the space. But you also are going to be having to plan on things like feeding your ants, your larvae, all this. There's a lot of stuff going on just turn to turn just to maintain your own horde of ants, that you always have something to do. You're always worried that you're not doing enough, and the fighting is really, really cool because, again, all of the cards that you're using, while they have the power on them, they also have text that might have some end game scoring. They might be related to improving your ant, building up your ant's head, body, and behind. So they're multi-use cards, and that makes it even more exciting because maybe the power on that card's really good, but also so is the text, and you don't want to use it in a fight. Let's see here. Any moments of achievements? Yes, certainly anytime you win a battle and eliminate people from a space so that you have all the resources available to you. Because at the end of the day, this game really has a lot to do with your resource management. It's a perfect 4X game. It covers all the X's, but you really do have to maintain food and other resources to make sure that you are supplying your ants or having the larvae turn into ants, things like that. But I'll also say it's really cool when you get a card that lets you improve your ant. You get to sort of build a combo of how your ant's going to be. Are they going to have any? Usually the head provides a good amount of offense. The body and the tail will provide other things like defense, or maybe something that allows them to spray, I don't know, acid or something like that on other people. It gets pretty cool as you're building your ants up, and sometimes you don't get the cards you need. And that's one of your questions here, was how much luck was involved, how much randomness. And there is some randomness because it's all in card draws. And so you really don't know what you're going to get. And yes, if you get really good draws, you might be able to build a really good ant, a template, so that all your ants have really good attack and defense and that sort of thing. But in my experience, that's pretty rare. And even when it does happen, there are other mitigating factors in the game, like, again, maintaining food and other things that might affect you being able to field enough ants to make that much of a difference. How far ahead can you plan? You have a pretty good balance of, on your turn, kind of not having too much AP, because the cards, you may get some new cards, or things may have developed on the board between your last turn. But at the same time, you have your hand of cards, and you can try to plan out as far as you can whether or not you have good tools for a battle, enough power to win a fight, because the fights are pretty brutal in this game. The math makes you lose ants almost as much as your opponent. It's pretty deadly, and if you fight too much, you end up thinning out yourself so much that any gains you do get, you may lose very shortly when someone else attacks you. Downtime, there's really not a lot of it in this game. One of the cool features is a lot of the actions allow secondary actions for the player on your left and your right. So when you're doing something with a card, maybe they get to draw a card, or maybe they get to move a space when you move. So there's a lot of engagement and not a lot of downtime in this game. It's really trim and tight with what it accomplishes in a very short period of time for a 4X game. You can finish a game of this in an hour and 15 minutes. Maybe with 4 or 5 players, you would go a little bit longer, like an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours on your first play. But there's not a lot of 4X games that you can do that with, even at 2 hours. So this game is kind of a hidden gem in that regard. Are you guys having negotiation? No, we really don't. I mean, there's really no trading or anything of that nature. And you might make an agreement not to attack each other, but it's not binding. Most of the time when I'm playing with people like Jess or a few of my other friends, Evil Jeff, you can't really rely on the promises within the game. Super trustworthy people in real life, but when you're playing a game where you're at each other's throats, which this game is definitely brutal, then you're going to have to watch out that they're not going to break a promise, or maybe you might have to. That's just the nature of a game like this, but we don't really veer off the rule book in that regard at all. How does the game scale? I would say it scales pretty well. I've never played it solo, but 2 players is really not a sweet spot here for me. I think you need 3 or more. 3 or 4 is probably really good, especially if it's people who know how to play the game. If you might be able to get away with that with 5 people, but again, it's tough for me. I don't know about you, but tough for me to get that many people together regularly to be able to play a game like this. So it usually hits about the 3 and the 4 spot for me when I play it, but it works well at those counts for sure. Can't speak to 1 player, and 2 players just not quite as good, I don't think. How is its replay value? Well, this kind of tails into your question about expansions. I've never used any of the expansions. I don't even own them. I've been tempted a few times, but there's enough in this game so that I don't feel like I'm missing anything. And I think that speaks to the replayability. Usually expansions will add to the replayability of a game, and I often think of them as either ways to improve the rules, if there were some that developed over time as fixes to the base game or additions to the base game, but a lot of times it adds extra content that makes the game more replayable. I don't think it would hurt to have that in this game because it's a great game, and usually great games with expansions just make the games even better. But in this particular case, I don't feel like I need to play with the expansions, at least for me, because I just don't get this game to the table as much as I would love to. I love 4X games, and but I really want to play Twilight Imperium, but I only get to play it once a year if I'm lucky. So with this game, I think the replayability is just fine, and that would not keep me from buying the game at all. Let's see, were there any other questions that you had? Does the game reward you on good strategy? I think it does. I think it really does. This game is great. I mean, I think on a scale of 1 to 10, I would give this game an 8 for sure. And as a 4X game, I don't think you're going to find a lot of them that fit in this tight of a window of time and covering all the bases of 4X with exploring the different hexes as you're putting them out. They tend to change a little bit of your strategy because now you get to see, kind of what's out there. So, I mean, I can't say enough about this game. I hope that this sort of supplements the drunk review that was kind of meant to be a joke, but also slightly informative. I guess it got your attention, but I hope this helps flesh out some of the things that video didn't have. If you have any other questions, go ahead and place them in the comments and I'll try to address those. While you're here, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. And I've got hundreds of videos that you can watch about board games. I have some music stuff and some nature even. So an occasional pickleball short. So thank you for watching. Have a good one.